Does anybody think that if Tim Pool was written about and they referenced any type of geography, they wouldn't reference West Virginia?
MAGA far right winger Tim Pool is saying typically stupid Tim Pool things. Sam Seder of the Majority Report broke all this down. We're going to take a look at some clips of Tim Pool as well as clips of Sam Seder on the Majority Report. I'm going to share my thoughts on this one as well. Let's check it out together.
This is a Tim Pool talking with Ian about the Maryland man hoax. Basically, he was in the White House press briefing and asked about the Maryland man hoax, and people are saying, what are you talking about, the Maryland man hoax?
Oh, the Maryland man hoax. Okay. Poor timing for Tim to come out with this on the day that Donald Trump was going to. He's got MS-13 on the picture of his hand. Not necessarily on the hand, but on the picture of the hand.
Look at what happened with the Covington kids. And we're going back years, but now the Maryland man hoax.
I got to talk about that. Okay, if I see both sides of this Maryland man thing. If I moved to California and some shit went down.
Ian, where are you from?
Ohio, but I'm from Maryland because I live in Maryland.
You're not from Maryland.
If someone asked me, where are you from? If I was in Germany and they're like, where are you from? I'd say Maryland.
No, you wouldn't.
Because that's where I came from.
That's not true.
Because I moved around so much, I would tell people I'm from LA when I lived in LA. When they would ask, where are you from? I'm from LA. I've been there 7 years.
You are one of the rare people who does that.
If I went to California and there was an article written and something happened and they were like, California man, something, something. Yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida? You're a Florida man. No. Dave, what's his name does that?
No.
So anyway, that's the
you're wrong.
State of mind.
These guys, I can't believe they're having a serious conversation about this.
This is just for people who don't understand why they're doing this. This is because Kilmar Abrego Garcia is described as a Maryland man because he, has a family there and a job. Well, he's been there since he's a teenager.
It's because they're not calling him a Maryland citizen or a Maryland resident because he doesn't have those legal statuses. So they call him a Maryland man.
People call me a Brooklyn podcaster.
I was going to say, I'm sort of like a Brooklyn guy, but not a man. I don't know what that is. Can we spend 45 minutes talking about that as if it's like a serious news analyst?
The news wouldn't call you a Worcester man if something happened to you in Brooklyn.
Worcester guy. Nobody refers to me that. I try and push it. I try and push it.
Despite your best efforts.
Uh-huh.
And this is a huge problem because Tim's whole thing is that everyone's wrong calling him a Maryland man.
That's not true.
Because I moved around so much, I would tell people I'm from LA when I lived in LA. When they would ask, where are you from? I'm from LA. I've been there 7 years.
You are one of the rare people who does that.
If I went to California and there was an article written and something happened and they were like, California man, something, something. Yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida? You're a Florida man. No. Dave, what's his name does that?
No.
So anyway, you're wrong. State of mind is
No, it's not.
You can write it up as such.
Pause it for a second. You understand what happened here is that Tim Pool probably prepped as much for this as he did anything, which means that he probably spent like 90 seconds thinking about this. Oh, I've got a great angle.
Wrote 2 notes down.
I've got a great angle. He's not a real Maryland man. And he starts to introduce it, and Ian just immediately goes, wait, no, that's not true.
I don't call myself Ohio man.
Yeah, exactly. It would be weird. Worcester man Sam Seder does his show out of, does his classic Brooklyn podcast. Wait, what?
Yeah, and R.M. Brown pointed out that most people from Florida weren't born there, but they're still called Florida man, of course.
And there was an article written and something happened and they were like, California man, something, something. Yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida? You're a Florida man. No. Dave,
actually, you know what? It just occurs to me. I was born in New York and I still think that I'm a Worcester guy.
Right, exactly.
I was born in New York. I was here for the first 18 months of my life.
Manhattanite Sam Seder.
You're wrong. State of mind is
No, it's not.
You can write it up as such if I'm residing in there.
If you're lying to people.
Well, these people, this guy's an El Salvadorian, and they're intentionally trying to spin it like he's an American Maryland dude.
That's the point.
So what happened there is Ian realized he was getting in the way of the money here because the whole point is we're calling these guys illegal.
Exactly. Listen, I got to feel, I want to make this clear. I feel bad for the people who work for Tim Pool because they are stranded. They've all of them moved to West Virginia, and West Virginia is not exactly like a burgeoning economy. And they're in rural West Virginia. And so their only way to make money at this point is Tim Pool, unless they're going to uproot themselves and move away. And that's a big risk. Yeah.
I got to stop here for just a second to kind of correct Sam on this. I'll get to the stuff specifically about the idiotic things that Tim Pool said. But the area where Tim Pool lives is in Martinsburg, West Virginia, or near Martinsburg, West Virginia. It's in West Virginia, but it's not a super rural part of West Virginia. They're about an hour from Washington, D.C., where they are. I know this area very, very well. They're about an hour from Washington, D.C., and that county there where Martinsburg, West Virginia is, has been officially considered a suburb of Washington, D.C. for a long, long time. So there are jobs there. Now, is it New York City or Los Angeles? No. But those guys could get jobs there. Now, I'm sure wouldn't be as good as the jobs that they have working for Tim Pool, but this is an area where Sam's talking about something that he doesn't really know anything about. But in terms of the idiocy of this thing, of them saying he's not a Maryland man, that is just a way, this is a thing that the administration has done. Pam Bondi says this. Other people within the Trump administration say this. And now all the Republicans and all these right-wing talk guys like Tim Pool are saying this. Oh, he's not a Maryland man. He doesn't count as a Maryland man. That's just another way to present him as an other. They want to present immigrants as others in a way that they can make them seem as non-human as possible to anyone who might try to push back on what they're doing. So Tim Pool, I think Tim Pool is smart enough to know this. If Tim Pool were arrested or his house burned down or something, they would list, just as Sam Seder and Matt Leck are saying here, they would list him as being a resident of West Virginia. They wouldn't say Tim Pool of Chicago, Illinois. He's lived in West Virginia quite a while, so that's how he would be listed. So this is just a nonsense way to distort reality and present immigrants as others.
I mean, when I was down there, I can tell you that, and I don't want to, single anybody out because I don't want to get, Tim is very vindictive of my understanding. But there was a guy who had a fairly prominent position in his enterprise, and then when all the Russian money dried up, ended up having to take a much lower position, sort of out of desperation. Anyways, keep going.
So mad how mad Tim gets here.
If I went to California and there was an article written and something happened and they were like, California man, something. Yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida. You're a Florida man. No. Dave, what's his name? Does that?
No.
So anyway, that's you're wrong. State of mind.
You're wrong. No, it's not.
You can write it up as such. If I'm residing in there.
You're lying to people.
Well, these people, this guy's an El Salvadorian, and they're intentionally trying to spin it like he's an American Maryland dude.
That's the point. So they're intentionally lying. They're pushing a hoax. And Hassan Piker, did you know this? Hassan did not know the guy was from El Salvador. One of the most prominent leftist streamers, speaking to millions of people, and in his mind, he saw CNN, he saw ABC, he saw these outlets, and he was like, "This guy's from Maryland. I can't believe Trump would deport him."
So, we don't need to watch it more. Hassan watched the clip of Tim Pool asking this, and he was as confused as Ian was at what point Tim was making, because we all know Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been there for almost a decade. He is a union member. He has a family. So, the confusion why you wouldn't call him a Maryland man who has a life in Maryland is confusing to most people, and that's what Hassan reacted to. Hassan has covered this story multiple times months before that. Does anybody
think that if Tim Pool was written about and they referenced any type of geography, they wouldn't reference West Virginia? Yeah. I mean, now, did Tim Pool grow up in West Virginia? I have no idea where he grew up. All I know he's a West Virginia guy.
He's Illinois, maybe.
I love how mad he is, though, at Ian for ruining step on his bit.
No, it's not. You're lying.
You're lying.
You're lying.
Stop it.
Not calling yourself an Ohio man. Are you stupid? How stupid do you have to be?
Can you imagine if I went on that show and said, "Listen, Ian, I'm not going to talk to you because you're going around pretending like you're an LA guy because you were in California.
Stealing LA valor.
And it's crazy. Nobody can trust a single word you say. You're just a hoaxer." hoaxer.
And Sam Seder and Matlack, they're just making fun of the stupidity and the insanity of this with Tim Pool and the other guy on a show. He looks like a magician or something. I don't know. But there's a more serious aspect to this that I think is dangerous, insidious, is the way that Donald Trump is able to essentially change reality, where you have all these, if Donald Trump or Donald Trump's people hadn't brought this up to say, no, he's not a Maryland man, he's from El Salvador, then no one would be saying he's not a Maryland man. But because the Trump administration says this, then it becomes reality. And you have all these people like Tim Pool parroting it, and all the other right-wingers and all the Republican politicians and all the members of the Trump administration. I think Marco Rubio has said he's not a Maryland man. And then we just distort reality, and people are arguing over, well, the guy's a Maryland man. No, he's not a Maryland man. Instead of the actual policy that the Trump administration has done by deporting this guy, sending him to El Salvador and others, and how unconstitutional that is. That's the real danger and the seriousness of this. Tim Pool's just a lying piece of shit with what he's saying here. By saying that other people are lying about this, he knows that's incorrect, but he's just parroting the right-wing MAGA framing on this to just cloud everything and just make it more of an argument than it should be. Let me know what you think about all this. Do you agree with Tim Pool, or do you agree with Sam Seder and the Majority Report? Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.